I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Jeff Charles, Sarah Cowgill, Tim Donner, and Joe Schaefer. And this is the Conservative 5, Liberty Nation TV's online news program. Big tech has been ramping up their own brand of censorship for months. From fact checkers to outright banning users for different thinking and values, the onslaught has been dizzying, to say the least. Apple, Twitter, Amazon have all pulled platforms for alternative social media pages. Heck, Trump was banned for life from Twitter. Now it seems revenge against any conservative who supported Trump is on a list. Is this our new normal, or is this a temporary temper tantrum? Well, what do you say, Joe? Is this what we can expect from this day forward?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it is going to get worse, and it's not going to stop with big tech. Processes are already in motion that are not going to be rolled back now. Precedents are being set at an amazing pace. When you think about the fact that when they started with the lockdowns for the coronavirus in 2019, that was a precedent. When they started making us all wear masks afterwards, that was a precedent. They're determining what they can push on the American people, what they can get away with. These bans by big tech, banning the sitting president of the United States from his social media account. That's mind-blowing. Not just the act itself, but what else the expanded power it presents them to what they can do to all the rest of us. And you're already seeing when Trump was outgoing, he was trying to get past a fair banking resolution that just said simply, banks can't take politics into consideration when doing business with their customers. And Democrats are already planning to roll that back. They want to allow banks to be able to cut off services if they disagree with them politically. They already do it to an astonishing degree with these ridiculous justifications, moral grounds, et cetera. Of course, they get to define the moral grounds. And it's just a snowball running downhill. Big tech is the vanguard of it, but it is not going to stop with big tech.
And the big part of the problem is that the solution that's been proposed, which is basically removal of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which shields companies like Twitter and Facebook from legal liability, the solution could possibly be worse than the problem, because with Section 230, if they're now liable for what they put on their site, the same way Liberty Nation and the Washington Post and the New York Times and everybody else is, then that gives them even more reason to censor people, because they have the justification of saying we have to protect ourselves from liability suits. So it's a circle here, and I don't know what the solution is.
Let me just say this whole 230 thing, I think is really a canard, because that's not going to fix anything. Look, right now we had Dominion voting machines breathing down the neck of American Thinker. They had to issue a huge, I guess, front page for digital medium apology, et cetera. We need to look at this in terms of monopoly breakups.
Absolutely.
Does anybody agree?
I agree.
Well,
with
I think
100%. That's the important word there, is monopoly breakup. When you become so powerful like this, that you break something up like that. You don't allow that. We broke up the phone company when I was young. I don't recall that destroying the telecommunications.
Standard Oil.
Quite the opposite. Why do we want Jeff Bezos to have the power that he is amassing right now? It's frightening. He is wiping out small business left and right. Books. It started with bookstores. I remember saying people were saying 20 years ago he's going to kill all the bookstores. Now he's going to kill all the local grocery stores. He owns Whole Foods. Yeah, it's just going on and on and on. And I think it's absolutely applicable to social media as well.
I'm sorry, Tim. Did you want to finish your point?
No, I think Joe handled it pretty well.
All right, Jeff, perhaps there's nobody on this panel that is more socially media active than you. What is your take?
Yeah, it's funny because over the past few years, I mean, this issue has been coming up and coming up. And I was pretty much opposed to any government intervention because I want the free market to work. But over the past year, I'm kind of reconsidering my stance on that. I mean, but I think if I were to hesitantly or cautiously support any kind of government intervention, it would be along the lines of what Joe just said, as far as breaking them up. These big tech companies are too powerful. They control too much of our lives. They rival the government. They determine what we see. They can determine what we say. They can be just as oppressive as a government that cracks down on its citizens. And we're seeing the beginnings of that now. The beginnings happened a while ago, but now we're seeing the next phase in that. I mean, it's like they shouldn't be able to capitalize on an event like the riots at the US Capitol to say, oh, now we get to censor everybody. I mean, just being on Twitter, I lost over 2,000 followers. I know a lot of other conservative commentators, a lot of conservative news outlets, they lost tons of followers. And there's absolutely no way that they will convince me that every single one of these people were inciting violence or violating their terms and conditions. So the fact that they're abusing their power and they actively prevent competition, I think the case can be made for some type of government action. But I would need to know exactly what they plan on doing before I actually say I would support it, because again, I'm very hesitant to want the government to be involved.
I think the simplest way to put it is that these media giants, these tech giants, need to be regulated like public utilities, the same as the gas company, the same as the electric company, because it's not a perfect solution to be sure, but I'm wondering what it is that can be done to stop them. Now, the downside of regulation is that it's subject to whoever's making the regulations. So we could see, Biden administration, the regime, the Democrats in Congress put in, one set of regulations and then have a Republican come in and change them, and it could be back and forth. So, Section 230, regulating as a public utility, none of them are perfect solutions, but I think we all agree something has to be done. And I think something will be done, whether it's substantial or amounts to much is a serious question.
Well, just today, I keep in touch with a lot of my little friends in the border towns, as everybody knows, but I was in a conversation on Messenger, which is the private message Facebook app, and got a notification that something in the conversation itself didn't fit community standards, and they deleted the entire conversation between me and a friend. And that conversation involved Joe Biden and a meme and, a phrase that apparently they didn't like, and they wiped it clean. So they're not only censoring what you say publicly, but now you can't say much of anything to your friends if they're monitoring those private messages.
So let me get this straight. You were doing a video chat with her via Messenger, or you were doing a text chat?
We were texting back and forth.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Wow. So they just wiped
the
it out.
fact that it, something picked up and triggered something with the Facebook, hall monitors, and it was over. The whole conversation was deleted.
Let me ask you this: were there other people involved, or this was just a private conversation?
This was a private conversation between me and one other person.
Wow, that's creepy. Well, Snapchat, Twitchy, Reddit, Facebook, all have limited the flow of information by conservatives. How did we get where big tech is the arbiter of free speech, Jeff?
Simple, by letting the far left take over big tech. I mean, and this is one area where I take issue with conservatives, because it's just they have the same approach as they do with the culture war. For so many years, they would not compete. They stayed out of it. And look what happened. The left takes over. They fill the vacuum. Same thing happened with Silicon Valley, with the entire state of California, really. But the thing is that big tech is owned by far leftists. Now, I am a little bit optimistic, though, because this doesn't mean that conservatives are going to lose this battle. Yeah, they seem like a Leviathan, but if you think about it, conservatives have always found a way to subvert the left's influence over broadcast media and in other areas. I mean, they did broadcast media, they took that over. Well, we still had Fox News, and then we had talk radio. After that, now we have online avenues like we're engaging in right now. And even with that, we can still build our own platform. So I think that's kind of where this whole thing is going to head. I have some concerns about it, but I do think that we are still going to be able to express our views. It just might be in a more siloed environment.
I think, Lisa, if I may say, I think what gives me hope as much as anything looking back at presidential elections was 1980. When Ronald Reagan was elected after being called a warmonger and every name in the book, much the same way that Donald Trump was during his 4 years in office. And this was before the internet. This was before social media. This is when the networks and the New York Times and the Washington Post had full reign over major media. And you didn't have anything competing with it. And yet Ronald Reagan won a 45-state victory over Jimmy Carter, despite a media that was all lined up against him. So we can keep that election in mind, that it is possible to overcome endemic bias in the media, but it sure isn't easy.
Well, if the thumbs up and thumbs down on YouTube are any indication, that's for sure. There's been a lot of Washington whispers. Maybe Trump will establish his own media platforms. He certainly has the money. One thing for sure, whether conservatives have to resort to homing pigeons or CB radios, there has to be a way for like-minded folks to communicate. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all our TV productions. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember to surf on over to libertynation.com. Sign up for our new member zone, just $17.76 a year. And remember, folks, liberty all the time and everywhere.